do you just want to wait until you talk to the focus groups more in depth about what it is they're thinking of?
Right. I think the importance of the focus groups is mainly going to be sort of the design of the units, because we had originally envisioned this straight apartments, but what the results bear out has more to do with what would be considered more of an off-campus, privately provided apartment situation, where there's some people we might have some quads, we might have some roommate situations, we might just have some straight apartments. And so those are things that will, those conversations will really just drive the design of how the thing lays out. And so that's what will be useful. The other thing that I thought was interesting was a list of amenities that they wanted to see, like the exercise room, and campus provided a food service, sort of a grab and go food service. And so I think these are some interesting things that can help make this into, I think, a really livable, walkable community, particularly in light of Joe's conversation about changing configuration of bookstores and providing retail opportunities that are campus provided to really support the community as well as its functions.
Thanks, Carol. That answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for that question.
Carol?
Yes, Ed.
I guess I'm still a little bit in doubt as to what our legal responsibility ultimately we might be looking toward here. Or are we talking about at some point having a contract where we're confirming that we will provide X number of people? Do we have some financial and obligation at some point here? Or what's the outcome, I guess, that we're looking toward?
That's a good question, and I don't know if I can answer it perfectly, and maybe our attorneys can help with some of this. What we essentially agreed to do is two things when we, and our agreement was really just a formalized letter of intention saying we're going to do this. One was to talk to our students and find out, is their interest, is this actually even feasible for us to consider based on that. This is the first step, as Anna's recommended. We should take these students that have said, we'd like to talk more about this, and pull them together in a couple of focus groups and ask them some in-depth questions. If parking's important, what is it about parking? What is it about food service? What is it about the design? And try to hone in on that. In many ways, that may inform the last step, or the other thing we said we would do, which is essentially try to wrap our minds around and come up with what we believe would be the appropriate management relationship if we were to move forward with that. I've said in the past, and I believe we will still end up there, what I envision as the appropriate management relationship would be one where we essentially lease all of the student housing associated with this building or these buildings, and then we manage it as we would our on-campus residents in many ways. There are facilities, we place students, they do the billing and all of those good things. So we would be sort of seen as an anchor tenant of this facility or these buildings. But that's what we need to be informed on, depending on the design and what type of amenities our students want and how those could be accommodated within the building. That may change slightly if we actually have to provide campus food service down there, and that has to happen in one of the retail spaces. It may shift the type of management relationship we have. But ultimately, what we need to come up with is say, okay, there's student interest. We believe there's enough of that, and if we were going to proceed with this, this is the type of management relationship that we think we would want to enter into. At that point, the game really goes back to the Heinz Capital Core team, and we still have the issues that we need to resolve, and that is parking, transportation, safety, all of those things. That's really the work that Alan and his group are going to have to grapple with, and until we have a proposal that would suggest we can provide this, we can build it, we have the mechanism in place, I don't know that we enter into any other type of formalized agreement. There may come a time where they say, for our ability to secure funding to do this renovation and construction project, we need to have an anchor tenant under contract. That's where we would get into the formalized arrangement to say, yes, we would agree for X number of years, we would lease out the housing at this rate and do that in more of a formalized relationship. Of course, all pending on their ability to build a facility and have all those other things in place.
So this might really resemble what some campuses have, where they have private ownership of facilities which are leased to house students. So we could look at that as maybe a template of of what we might be getting into?
That's correct. Trustee Mosier, based currently what you have right now is simply the letter of intent. The college has promised the development authority that you're interested in continuing to look at it as an option, but what that actually is going to look like is still up to you to decide, and that's why we're kind of taking it step by step to see what are the needs of the students, can we actually fulfill those. And as we get more information and do focus groups, talk to the students, decide budgeting what we can do, we can figure out what kind of a legal relationship we may enter into with any particular entity or with ourselves or with the students to determine what that looks like. As of right now, we're under no such preliminary obligation. So we're really going to be crafting, if we choose to move forward, what that may or may not look like. And as we get closer to what those options may be, we can start looking into legal ramifications of each of those options as we move forward. At this point in time, it's simply, are the students interested in downtown housing? It appears that they are, so now we need to start looking into those next steps, can we fulfill those obligations, and what that's going to look like.
Okay, thank you.
Carol?
That's done.
I'm kind of reluctant to speak on this because I don't want to give the impression that I'm speaking against moving forward, all right? I think going to focus groups makes sense, but it appears to me, I got a couple comments, maybe some questions. I have a question to Judy. Do we have an off-campus housing policy? Do we approve facilities that our students are living in? That may be something we might want to consider. Then coming back to the survey itself, and Ann, you mentioned that we really can't make general conclusions from this. And depending on what you want to get out of it, you're going to get whatever you want. You can find what you want in here. Kind of like Will Rogers said, statistics are kind of like garbage. Everyone collects them. They don't know what to do with them. But in turn, some people do other things with them. If we look through the 110 individual points that are here, and depending on whether we want to go forward or we want to go against, we can find information to be for, or we can find information to be against. I would think it would be useful to have a concordance analysis of these 110 comments to find out just really what are the most common types of responses. Okay, so I'm not real impressed for me as a trustee to say, oh, the students are really interested in putting something downtown for off-campus housing. I'm not convinced that I get that out of here. Now, I'm not speaking against this. I think we need to continue to move forward. Now, if we move forward, I think we need to have input not only from the students, but from the parents, from the community, from the individuals who have businesses in the downtown, because they're all going to be affected by this particular type of effort. And I'm sure that if we were, as trustees, we would go out and say to our friends, and maybe some of you have asked them these questions. I know I have asked some of these questions, and parents have a different view. They do. Parents have a different view about what the students, the younger students, where they should be. You know, in some universities and colleges, they don't allow 18-year-olds or freshmen to live off campus. I don't know if that's still the case. That was the case when I was a student. I know I'm ancient now in comparison. It still is. It still is. So it appears to me that as we move along on here, we got some other things we might be looking at, such as our off-campus housing initiatives. What policies should we be developing? Should we be looking at the potential places where students are going to live off campus? Should we have some involvement in that? Should we be approving that? It opens up a whole new scenario of questions, I think. Now, in final comment, I think we should move forward, okay? I don't want the folks over in the corner over there to get the impression that I'm speaking against moving forward, because as a former mayor, I'd like to see the downtown have a nice smile, and we don't have a nice smile. So I got kind of a, I got pulled over here and pulled over here, and where do I go? But, so let's move forward with looking at this as a possibility.
Don, I think your comments about, formalizing our structure or policy about student housing, I think will be important, and it's certainly on our radar. We've been working under the assumption, from the start of this project, that any type of off-campus housing relationship would indeed not be targeted or even available to those first-year freshmen, traditional high schools. I mean, we still want those students to come to campus and be in our residence halls on campus. One of the struggles we have right now is we just don't have enough space on campus to accommodate those students. They tend to be full, and we're sending them somewhere else. And so that's still our approach. And by the way, this project or any type of on-campus relationship does not mean that we're not continuing to look at expanding on-campus student housing. I think there's a need there for on-campus student housing as well, and so there are multiple things we need to flesh out and move and work as we move forward with this. And really what this, I believe, tells us, and where I might slightly disagree with you, is that we've got 273 students that told us they would be interested in living downtown. What was the capacity? What did we estimate for occupancy down there? 100. So there's 100 places down there. I mean, I'm not saying all 273 are going to, move into the apartment down there, but, we know that there's 273 of our students who are interested in that. We would have capacity for 100. Pretty good indication that it's something we should continue to look into. And in many ways, it just reaffirms that we know we have to address student housing. I mean, we know that's why it's a priority of ours right now. We've got to do it. And so I think through the focus groups, we will get at that. One of the things that will happen with the focus groups is we will get more detailed in regards to open-ended responses and comments. From there, that's where we implement the qualitative research analysis and start looking for themes that pull out what you're talking about in these responses. What are the most important things, the most current things? As we go through that focus group process, we'll be able to further mine those out. And so this information will feed into that. The focus group information would feed into that, and then we'll have a much better idea of, how feasible is this. And, of those 273, they'd all love to live downtown if they have penthouse suites and it only costs them $300 a month. We may find that out and say, that just ain't going to work.
Dr. Joe, you made my point. You found what you wanted to find. That's right. In the statistic here. Now, you go to another page, and I don't want to get into it. Okay, but the thing is, we're going to move forward. I think all of us, at least I would hope that we would move forward with the focus groups, but expand it beyond the students so that we have others involved as well.
That's a good point.
Bill has something to say.
Well, I just would like to say that I agree that we should move forward and continue working on it, and I think you're doing a wonderful job getting to this point. I think one thing, Don, that you have to realize a lot of our students are not 18-year-old kids just out of high school. And, these are adults, and these are married students, and these are people that are out on their own. So I think that, and you asked about, do we check on where people live or where students live? I don't think we could ever get into that. I mean, people have a right to live wherever they want, and it isn't up to us to be somebody going out and checking what they're doing and where they are. And so I think that all these things have to be thought about, and I think, as you said, Ann, in the beginning, focus groups, find out really what they want and how many really would move down there, and then we have to see what the price tag is.
And if I may just make one comment about all the comments and the age of the students and those. One thing that this report is just a preliminary analysis. So next thing on my plate regarding this project in preparation for those focus groups is to do some looking at subgroups. We asked about age. We asked about where they're living now to see if I can see any differences in there that can help us form those questions for those next conversations. Or might send up a huge red flag and say, oh, forget what I recommended, I'm changing my mind. As we dig in, that we haven't had the opportunity to do yet with the end of the year, but those are all things that we would be doing fairly soon in preparation for this digging in more research.
Madam Chair, I also think that we have to take a look at, see, if we don't have that many students or student families that would want it, if we are the leasee, so to speak, then we have to realize maybe there's others that aren't even involved in the campus, because we would want to have them full in order to get the rent, you know. So I think that's another consideration. Is it going to be exclusively students, or are we going to, as if we decide to be that leaseor, then I think we have to realize that we might be involved in taking other people too. These are just things that will have to come up in the focus groups.
And when do you think that you might have the focus groups formed, and when you can bring us another report, a second report?
Well, to say, I'm hoping, and I haven't actually had a chance to talk with Judy about this, hoping to get together the group that worked on this project already sometime next week, between all of the meetings, and then be able to give you a better timeline on that.
Sure.
To give us time to really talk and analyze things, 6 to 8 weeks would be kind of pushing it. So
like in March?
I said March, yes. Sometime in March, we could get you something.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Gerald, may I have an opportunity to respond to Bill?
Sure.
Because, Bill, you made some good points, but am I on here? Yeah. I don't want to give the impression that I'm thinking that we got to be the Gestapo and tell all the students where they can and cannot live. I'm just saying that I think that if a particular complex or whatever it may be wants to have maybe students from our facility, that maybe we ought to have some way in which we are reviewing those facilities for the benefit of the students. And I know this is done throughout, all over, I believe. So it's just basically an approval of various facilities that would be available to the students. Not, if they want to go someplace else, that's their choice. I think that's a service that we would, a student service that we would be providing to our students.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm actually quite enthusiastic about this project. I really am. I think of what I would be like as a 20-year-old student in Cheyenne. I think it would be an incredibly cool place to live because it's downtown, and there's a lot of interesting things that go on down there.
Yes.
When I looked through this, though, I didn't mean that. You know, there's a lot of interesting things that go on in the pillow pit too, but we're not going that way. But I was kind of disappointed in how few people responded. I don't know how many positive responses you have to get in order to get a solid, 100 people who would definitely say, yeah, I'll sign and move in. Maybe you'd need 500 or 600 or 700 really positive responses to get that. But I was kind of surprised about a number of things. One, and I may be making too much of this, but it seemed to me like there was too much of an emphasis on other facilities that the college would put down there. And I thought that was the whole point, is it's housing down there, and the rest of the amenities are provided by the city around you down there. And I don't know, some people look like they're not paying attention to that. And then there is the most extreme person who talked about it being the high-crime downtown area. This is like it's Detroit, and, you know. But there seemed to be some emphasis on that. And that brings me to what the feedback I've gotten from the community on this. When they found out that you guys were out here making this pitch to the college, a disturbing number of people have said, you guys aren't thinking about doing anything with that pit, are you? And I just think that doggone hole downtown is still such a mess that people can't envision what might be done with it. And I don't know how to get around that, but it makes it look like the board are crazy for even considering such a thing, which I don't think is true at all. But that definitely has colored, it's a bad mess. Something's got to be done with it to make the town look better. This looks like a pretty reasonable idea to me. It doesn't even begin to exhaust our housing needs for students in this area. But there were these few little things that struck me along the way, and having the community people tell me, you aren't thinking of doing anything with that mess was a little disturbing. I thought people would be more enthusiastic about it.
That kind of brings us back to what the point Don was making is, as we go forward, we include community members, then we can see more community members in that. Just with the open-ended comments, that one that popped out there, it's like, well, it's one out of 379 people who had an opportunity to comment on there, but it was a really loud voice. And so open-ended comments, blogging at the WTE, all those kinds of things, when people are passionate, they take the time to do that. So while we need to take those into consideration going forward to see if there are trends that can help us, one comment, we have to be careful of taking one comment out of context. And then regarding the number that comes in, well, it's not, the conservative statistician in me says, be careful, don't generalize, and that's true. I don't know that it's necessary that we have an absolutely perfect representative sample for this project, because there are targeted students, those ones who are interested in living on campus, those 19, 20-year-olds, they've gotten under their first year. So from that point of view, for seeing if we want to look into this project, I think the sample is pretty good for that. The ages are what we're imagining looking down there. The people who are interested are positive about it. So just because it's not a perfect sample, I don't think that's any reason not to move forward on this. And as we move forward, we can have the time to adjust those to make sure we have a more sound methodology, more scientific process going forward on this.
Thanks, Ann. Maybe just one follow-up point to this to conclude the conversation to move us along. We actually have the easy job in this thus far, talking to students, identifying what it might look like if we had this available. Kevin, your comment about the whole, the gentleman over here, they've got a big dream, but they've got a lot of work ahead of them too, and that includes work that has to happen with the city and the acquisition of the whole, if that's still possible, and how we're working on it, putting together a financing model, getting folks to actually invest, do the construction, doing all of those things. And so, I think our work here in identifying whether or not we want to be a partner of this is kind of exciting, but it's really the simple part with it. And in many ways, once we get to that point, even if we got to that point to say, yeah, it's something we'd like to go forward, this is what it would look like if we were going to enter into an agreement, these fine gentlemen have the lion's share of the work, I think, to get us to the point where we could actually sign on and do that. And so, we need to recognize that and support it. But I'm hearing from you. We'll keep moving forward with this. We will start looking at the management relationship that would probably fit best on what we know. We'll do the focus groups to refine our information and get a little better picture, and then report back to you on what those might look like. And Alan and Glenn and Jim will continue to work with you on that.
Alan?
I might add that just from a pragmatic point of view, our letter of intent brings into a pumpkin, I think, in a couple of weeks.
Oh.
And what the next step at that point was to sort of create this, what we call the plan and use document, but it sounds to me like it's working more into extension of the letter of intent. And I think Joe and I were planning to sit down within the next couple of weeks to kind of come up with maybe part two, which would include the focus groups, which would include coming up with the data that Joe indicated about some basic financial information on it, some things that move us forward, move the ball forward a bit. I plan on working with my bond underwriting group and probably the Kaizen company to maybe start those discussions as far as what the financing piece might start to look like. And maybe include some of those things into those next iterations. I'm thinking now we might be able to do it. And the second thing is that we're well open to having community-based focus groups and community-based meetings because, this whole project hasn't gotten this far because of just us two folks. I mean, we've really been working hard to go up from the ground up and kind of from the middle out as opposed to the top down. And you're the only ones who've seen the vision, and you really want to, let the wizard walk out from behind the curtain and show the community kind of what we have in mind with this thing. And this is a great opportunity for us to move forward with informing the community at large about the project.
I really appreciate your passion. I think it's because of you three, and it's especially Glenn and Alan. Jim, I think you're a big part of this project as well, but I really appreciate all of your passion for this project. Thank you for coming. And we'll talk about that, and how will we do this? We'll get together in a couple of weeks.
And let me have I'll have a conversation with Alan. We'll kind of put our heads together, and then I'll have to check with Tara and Gay and see how to do that. I mean, we'll have to come to I don't think our next step, I guess, in my mind, is that we would actually jump to a use agreement. But we could certainly look at, if we get to that way, what would the agreement or the arrangement look like? But to do that, I need to, talk to Alan and figure out exactly what his needs are in terms of the campus's involvement and how that, to Ed's point, what type of relationship and formalized agreement would that mean? Yeah, but I actually think we can get through the second piece, which is what would be the ideal management relationship if we were to move forward. I think we can satisfy that part of the requirement here, and hopefully by the deadline of that letter of intent or the time we put on it. The focus groups will help us refine, but in many ways will help you refine more the design of the facilities and those types of things. And so down the road, I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. Does that sound fair, Tara?
It does. It does. And I think Ellen's on the right track too, but it's one more step before we get that. And then we can all have time to fully comment on the ramifications and perhaps even discuss options. That's what I envision. About an option A, an option B, an option C, the management options and the financing associated with that. And we can look at all of this together,
Great.
including liability issues.
Okay. So we'll have those conversations, and we'll come back to you with more information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you. Bye-bye. Next, the Bochis.
How are we doing on time?
We're okay. 20
Okay.
after, I know.
Okay, we're...
The day's shot.
Did you see this, Kevin? Noon to
They know.
5?
Yeah, I saw that.
I won't say anything. Thank you, and then I'll hopefully be done after this one. So as a bit of backdrop here again, you have I believe, had a presentation. Christine and Don, you are new to this, which I don't know if you were here for the presentation that we had on concurrent enrollment. But you've had a presentation, at least roughly, on concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, and the concept of a BOCES or a BOCES. And we are at that point now where the campus, for a variety of reasons, is feeling it's time for us to formally look at the establishment of a Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services. So as a backdrop to this, for those of you, and to see if I actually know what I'm talking about, because I'm still trying to learn this too. The state of Wyoming has established legislative language in the statute that allows for the formalized organization of educational entities to provide services, collaborative services, to their service areas. And part of that legislation also allows for resources to get that done. And so these are typically called Board of Cooperative Education Services. Those are most of the time when you hear of a BOCES, that is a K-12 secondary education service relationship, or a Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services, where the higher education partner has a very strong role or relationship in that. BOCES and BOCES exist in every community college service area in the state, except for in LCCC's service area, which is Laramie County and Albany County here. Yet we have a long history of offering services that are typically funded, coordinated, and organized by a Board of Cooperative Education Services or Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services. So before I go on, I just want to point out that Stan is still here. He is going to be a resource for me. The lovely and talented Brenda Abbott is here. She's going to be a resource for me as well. Mary Ellen is actually home sick with whatever we all seem to be passing around or having. But she helped really put a lot of this proposal together as well. So we may refer to Stan and Brenda for some help on some of these questions and comments. So we have, let me see where to. Sure. Probably shift some of these microphones that way too, but certainly come up by the podium, guys. That'd be great. So we have this mechanism in the state of Wyoming to formalize these partnerships, these collaborations, to better coordinate and deliver educational services that help advance collective goals and priorities of our entities. What we're proposing, and at that point now, and you are sort of the first testing ground as a Board of Trustees, is that we actually move forward with seeking to establish a Southeastern Wyoming Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services, or a Southeast Wyoming BOCHES. And that's essentially the gist of what this proposal is. It still says draft because we're still trying to work through the details. As you'll find out as we go through here, from here we need to go to our school district partners, their administrators, and then ultimately their boards as well, to really see if we can come to agreement on formally establishing a BOCES. So here's what it would look like. Right now, as I said, we have many of these services and relationships happening informally, whether it's our concurrent enrollment partnerships, whether it's the career pathways work that we're doing, transitional advising services where Brenda's in the high schools doing these types of work, and in many ways some of the other programs and partnerships that we have, like our partnership diploma completion program. There are many things that we are currently doing right now. Each one of those programs, except for where we have key individuals like Brenda who kind of oversee that, for the most part, each one of those programs, though, is really managed independently as independent programs or services, all of them within Stan's area right now, but it's this program, this program, this program that's done with that. Under the concept of a BOCHES or a BOCES, we would actually enter into a formalized organization or agreement with Laramie County School District 1 and Laramie County School District 2, and what you'll see, we've had Albany County School District in and out and in and out. Based on our conversations with them, I think they're going to be a good partner if we go down this road, but with the new high school and all that other good stuff going on over there, they just may not be ready to join in. So we've had some conversations, and it's not that we're excluding them. We actually see them as the natural partner to come in down the road. We just don't know if they're going to be ready to look at that with some of the things that are on their plate. So I just want to make sure you know that they're not excluded in here for any purpose. Down the road, we want to actually see 3 school district partners as part of this. The way this essentially would work, the organization would work, is we would create a governing board of this BOCHES, and that governing board would be proposed to have 3 members of the LCCC Board of Trustees, so 3 of you, 2 members from the Laramie County School District 1 board, and 2 members from the Laramie County School District 2 board. It would be a formalized organization. That board would hire an executive director and he or she staff to essentially carry out what we're doing. The binding glue is your status as trustees or status as trustees with the school districts. We are proposing that they'd have an office here in Cheyenne, and I think what we would really like, because it's a Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services, that office is here at LCCC. But, I think we can work through those specific details. The funding mechanism, the statute allows for you as a board and for any partnering entity to essentially vote to levy 1/2 mils in your service area to fund a Board of Cooperative Higher Education Services. So you would actually, much like we do with our 1 mil, every 2 years have to take action and decide and determine whether or not you would levy a 1/2 mil or vote to have a 1/2 mil levied to our constituents. And I've broken down, there's the reference to the legislative language in there and talked a little bit about that. We do have some opportunity, or you can actually as a BOCHES go out to, or board, go out to the voters and say we'd like to levy more, but you have to approve it. We're not suggesting that at this point. We're saying you're looking at the 1/2 mil that basically is under your domain as trustees. If we were to do that, and if Laramie County School District 1 was to go out and say, okay, we want to be part of the BOCHES, we're going to establish this, do all this great stuff, and do that, what they could levy as a board with their action would be about $450,000 as 1/2 mil. Eastern Laramie County would be $53,000. And then for LCCC, our portion would be about $500,000. So the long and short of it is if we said, okay, we're going to create this Southeast Wyoming Boat Cheese, we're going to enter into this collaboration, create this board, after a public hearing and then action by you, by Laramie County School District 1 and Laramie County School District 2, you could assess 1/2 mills on our service areas, which would generate about $1 million for the operations of the boat cheese here. And keep that in the back of your mind, because we'll talk about that here a little bit more in a few minutes. The formation and doing that would help fund really the continuation and hopefully expansion of the current programs and relationships that we have. And on page 2, you could see there, those include dual concurrent enrollment, transitional advising, career coaching, pathways work, faculty, teacher administration, and other types of professional development. These are things we are currently doing. You've heard that we have needs for additional resources and support as we expand concurrent and dual enrollment, finding ways to provide resources to train faculty, to get them involved in the coordination and oversight and all those good things. You know, right now we're relying heavily on Brenda to do all of that, to expand this and do it right. And in many ways, to do what we're doing now, we should have additional resources to do that. In addition, we've got some great early collaborations around career academies, specifically around dual enrollment. Would be high school students coming to the LCCC campus in a career academy, initially focused on career and technical education type of areas, but you know, really the idea of career academies opens up so many opportunities for us. We can do more working with at-risk populations, first-generation college students, low-income students, you know, helping with some of the work that we're doing in Gear Up. Working on other career and skill development, and that's just scratching the surface. You know, if you ever get a chance and take a look at the Boat Cheese website for Sheridan, Campbell County, Sheridan County, what's Buffalo? Johnson County, you know, the services are actually quite impressive what they can be doing. And this is all around the idea of helping students succeed in high school and succeed after high school. So Don, your comments about how are we going to fund and how are we going to partner with the school district to do new innovative approaches to making sure that they're college ready for mathematics. This is the mechanism that other communities are using in the state to do some of that. And we can certainly do that. So, you know, expanding the current services and then really adding the new services and the things that we simply don't have the resources to do at this point. The other two sections, I'm not going to read them to you, but the outcomes and the goals of what the Boat Cheese, what we would propose, as well as some, you know, just some blurbs from different research about them. You know, the idea is we're going to help our students be more successful in high school, completing high school, and going on to college and after college. I mean, really that's what we're after, decreasing remediation rates, increasing the accumulation of credits, increasing the retention rate, getting to them to that student goal attainment. And this is the benefit that other communities have. And while we've got great partnerships in this regard, they're not formally organized through this type of setting. Page 3 takes you to a proposed budget, just to give you an idea of how it's broken down. It's very simple. I know Brenda and Stan and others have more detail behind, well, what's under personnel, $700,000 in personnel. What is that? Operations, professional development, waivers, and scholarships. But that gives you an idea of sort of how it would be broken out. For example, you know, you see the $25,000 line item there for professional development. One of the biggest challenges we have right now with our policy regarding minimum faculty qualifications, which we've established and set and believe are what the institution wants to set as that threshold, it has an impact on our local high schools' ability to actually provide concurrent enrollment faculty who meet our qualifications to teach college-level coursework. What they've come to us and said to us is, that's great, our teachers would love to be master's prepared within that discipline or have a master's degree plus 18 credits in that discipline, but what's available for them to move into graduate level coursework is generalized education programs, a master's degree in education. How do we give them graduate level coursework in biology when it's not available? This professional development and the Boat Cheese may provide that mechanism for us to actually broker this type of development or professional development opportunities here in Cheyenne. It came up, and Rob knows this, came up in Faculty Senate with one of our faculty, saying, how am I supposed to advance myself professionally when I cannot get in-state or here in Cheyenne access to professional development opportunities within my field or my discipline? The Boat Cheese can help do that by setting aside resources and helping coordinate professional development activities. So So there's important elements in there, and we'll open that up for conversation. The last thing I want to do is talk about fiscal impact, and I always hate saying that we have to do this because of either budget constraints or not because of budget constraints, but here's the reality of this. As an institution, we have been funding over $500,000 to do activities that are typically funded through a BOCES or a BOCES. So our general fund budget, including things like, and I don't even know, Brenda, if you have this in here, if we put in the tuition waiver impact under that general input. I know we talked about it. I was just looking at under the sub-general fund. It might be under contract, is it? Okay. But we're underwriting, we cannot charge students tuition for concurrent enrollment. That's mandated by the state. But when they come to us, we have to do something with the cost for that tuition. We carry it as a waiver. The other BOCES and BOCES in the state utilize those systems to fund the scholarshiping of concurrent enrollment students, as well as helping pay for faculty support, for oversight, and all of those things. We are carrying a $500,000 obligation on your general fund budget every year to do things that are typically funded through a BOCES or a BOCES. This doesn't even take into account what the school districts are funding out of their general funds for the partnership diploma program and those types of things. So in many ways, we can build off of what we're doing right now. We can add the new services that we know we need to add, and we can still do this without having concerns about what do we do with our general fund as we're talking about reallocating, reducing, handling budget reductions. This is a mechanism that's in place for us to do that, and it's one of the reasons why I think we're at that point where it's time for us to have this conversation with you, with your endorsement to go ahead. We want to go sit down with the superintendents and School District 1 and 2 and their staff, and then ultimately get in front of the boards and say, here's what we're proposing. We'd like to move forward with it. Are you on board? And we have a lot of other material. We have a project timeline, a sample agreement of what it would look like, all of those things that we can flesh out, but we wanted this to be the initial conversation. This is a draft proposal that we'll refine and get in front of our other partners. And so really want to hear your feedback. In terms of timeline, and Stan and Brenda, correct me if I get off on this. So let's say we sit down with School District 1, School District 2, the superintendents and their executive staff say, yep, this looks good, let's move forward with it. Goes to the boards say, I think we're ready for this, the agreement looks good, we've vetted through all the legal folks and everything. What it would take is for you as a board to hold a public hearing like you do with your 1 mil, have the public hearing and then take action about whether you want to become part of the Southeast Wyoming BOCES, enter into this agreement, levy the 1/2 mills. The boards at School District 1 and 2 would have to do the same thing. Once those are done and we've executed that agreement, an agreement saying we're formalizing this, we're on board, all that good stuff, that then goes to the Department of Education. We believe they are meeting in April, is that right, Stan? If the Department of Education approves it, and we have no reason to, State Board of Education, sorry. Yes, not the department. Thank you. If the State Board of Education approves it, essentially then it goes to the county just to enact the taxation element. Is that correct? Levy the mill. And that would most likely happen in August, and I don't know, the revenue would probably not start hitting in the formalization probably until mid-next fiscal year. Is that correct? Yeah. Correct, good point. So if School District 2 or 1 said, yeah, we're just not ready for it, it doesn't mean we couldn't do that. But because we have such strong relationships, I hope that they would see the value of it as well. So that's a very brief overview. I can answer lots of questions, and that's where I'd rather spend our time in hearing what you guys have for thoughts or questions or comments.
Questions? Kevin.
As always, how many students are we talking about that might be impacted? Let's say had such an arrangement with District 1, which is the big district.
What's our dual enrollment, 1,400?
1,400 already. The difference in the eligible students basically funded program and a BOCES funded program would be that there would not be any limits on the number of courses, say dual credit courses that students take. But all of the other BOCES in the state, there's a difference between when I take 3 courses at the college, you take 3 courses.
Well, there's a limit according to how much money the BOCES has actually raised. So there is still a limit there. How much are we providing in waivers a year now?
275,000 is the line item.
So this budget would just basically replace that money.
It would actually be income.
Sure, but, you know, I'll be the devil's advocate here for a second. The taxpayer looks at this and says, this is just another way to fund things that they're already doing. If we're already doing all of these things, what's really the advantage to me, the taxpayer, and the students out there in this formal arrangement? What's the advantage? And is it more than $1 million in taxes?
That's actually, it's a fair question. So here would be my initial response. One, in light of budget reductions, we have to make decisions of what our priorities are. And as we look at scholarshiping students and setting aside funds for waivers and all of those other great things, do we believe that we can advance and meet our mission, advance our strategic priorities, and do more in regards to the college completion agenda or whatever through initiatives that are truly based on campus versus setting $275,000 aside for tuition waivers, which could mean we would actually end up scaling back dual enrollment, concurrent enrollment, and some of those relationships with that. So if we have to come up with $1.3 million, is that feasible for us to say, well, one of the areas that would have a smaller impact on our core mission to reduce the amount of dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment scholarships, yeah, you could take a whack there. So part of it is the fact that we are currently doing it, but because of budget constraints and additional priorities of the campus, we have to decide whether or not we want to do it. All the other service areas in the state are utilizing this mechanism to do this, and the other things we are not. So it's a question of, do we want to continue doing this at all, and do we want to continue doing it with general fund money? So that's the first thing. The other thing with it, though, is there are opportunities that other high school students in Wyoming are benefiting from because of the formation of this. So I think we could actually serve the students of Laramie and Albany counties at a much higher level, more students, more opportunity through this. So we believe that from a taxpayer perspective, the investment would actually increase college-going rates, remediation, or decrease remediation rates, retention rates. So I would take it from an argument that we'll actually expand services and the number of students that we can touch through this taxation, and for that amount of money, it seems to be a fairly good investment from my perspective. But it's true, we're currently doing it, and people have asked, well, if we're currently doing it, isn't that a more effective way than asking for additional tax revenues to keep doing it? I just don't know if we can continue to do it at the level we want. We certainly wouldn't. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I don't know how a request to expand concurrent enrollment and additional general fund revenues would compare to welding programming, process engineering, some of the work that we want to do within fine arts and transfer programs. I mean, I just don't know how that would compare, and so it does beg the question, if we are going to invest or look at reductions, would this be a place we would do that? And I don't know, but I see it as one of those areas that we should be looking at other funding mechanisms.
Well, we have to do this in fact if we want, because the other thing is the state legislation requires that we do concurrent enrollment.
Yeah.
Not only that we offer concurrent enrollment, but the updated legislation in 2010 requires that we expand access, that we make it fair. Then when we look at the accreditation efforts that we're looking at to create an accredited program through the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, which is NACEP. Through NACEP requires ongoing professional development in the content areas in a number of the sites in Kansas. NACEP requires site visits by our faculty to every classroom where we have, we do right now, over 200 sections of courses in the high schools. And faculty say, we want to do this. I've got them ranging from those who take the personal days to go to their site visits to those who say there must be some form of compensation for doing this, and there is across the country. Faculty that are compensated for that. We come up with a temporary solution that we are going to be compensated separately for the site visits this year, but that really should come from that.
And I guess maybe that's the way I should phrase this is, to do what you're doing now, let alone to do it better, do some of these other things, do you anticipate you would be coming forward to the college asking for additional resources? Yeah, and my question is where are those going to come from, and how does that rank in the priorities of all the other things we've been discussing today?
Well, and the further thing, and you haven't really touched on it, I understand we could probably impact more students. You'd have some resources to have faculty look into how well the high school courses dovetail into the transition here to college and things like that. But you've also mentioned that it's going to help retention and have students, provide better success for students when they enter college. And I don't see fundamentally how that works here. I don't see the mechanisms. I don't see the structure for that yet.
That all comes from the national reports that are coming out now on and that's where these quotes came from right here in the boxes. That came from two of the national reports, not our data.
Maybe something, if I could tag along there, all other
skip boxes.
all other districts are doing this in the state, and retention and success or remediation levels. I'm just wondering if we could see some statistics, because I think this is a good idea, but I would like to see the statistics, since we're the oddball out. What's their rates versus ours? When at the commission meetings, I didn't see, and I don't remember a breakdown showing how those are better than what we're doing, or worse.
Yeah.
This just came up today, actually, on a national level on the news that listserv, that we're in a really unique position right now to form our VOCEs with the mission of addressing those situations. Because every VOCEs is formed with a mission, and that's what the State Board of Education bases your request for a VOCE on. And we have the unique opportunity now to create a VOCE that is tailored to doing what we want to do.
Okay, but do you know, and I don't expect you to have them with you today or anything, but it would really be nice, because I'd like to say to my neighbor, as he says, you're going to nail me for another $500,000. I'd like to be able to say, yeah, but that $500,000 is going to reduce the long-term costs here because remediation will be down, because success will be up. And I'd just like to have that in hand.
Those are the national reports that we use.
But we,
You don't have it in Wyoming yet. Nobody's done it.
the community college provided some data on this.
Sorry.
Commission, I'm sorry.
They've looked at that. I don't know if they've done the level analysis that I think you're looking at. And so, my disclaimer before I say these numbers is that I'm not suggesting that a VOCEs has a direct correlation to what's happening with retention rates and transfer out rates. But here's what we do know. 90% of our students are from Laramie and Albany counties, so they're coming right from here. Our median age is 22. We have many recent high school graduates that come to us. We have the highest attrition rate, the lowest retention rate of any of the other community colleges in the state. And I'm not suggesting it's because they have a VOCEs and we don't, but I would be willing to bet that there are elements of what they're able to coordinate within a VOCEs that have some predictive impact on whether or not those students succeed once they get to us. And remediation may be a great way to look at that. I don't know if they've looked at or if we truly have remediation rates from different high schools in the different areas or how those are impacted by a VOCEs. But what I can tell you is we have significant work to do in regards to first year to second year persistence and remediation, and 90% of our students are coming right here from our counties. And so I can't say that there's a direct correlation there, but I would be willing to bet that we can find some type of predictive relationship between the two.
And see, and that's something that, ever since Brenda brought together the board from all three districts here a couple of years ago, we've been trying to get to is that relationship, really to build that and have it on the, if you would, I always want to say where the students and the faculty are meeting out there, and I really think it's critical, and this will give us, I would hope, the avenue to put faculty in the public schools with faculty at the college so they can work out this challenge that we're facing.
Thank you, Ed. Any other comments? Oh, Joe?
I was just going to say, we will get the national reports, and then I will see what we can do for even state-specific reports on this to try to give a different picture of what are truly the benefits for those areas with the BOCES versus us. And I don't know, but I'm sure we can get college-going rates by county, some of those other things. And again, they won't be perfect correlations, but at least get us in the right direction.
Because every BOCES is by choice and different. For example, this Central Wyoming college BOCES doesn't have all of the Fremont County school districts as part of it. Only those who choose to belong to that. Others belong to the BOCES, which is a separate organization.
We have, as we discuss this, there's obviously many outcomes that are good. No doubt about it. The very point that I was making earlier, that we need to do something about the increasing remedial problem, and it's not decreasing. But we're kind of talking about this kind of like in a vacuum. We're not looking at the other realities that are out there in terms of going after the taxpayer's dollar. Even us, we're going to go possibly for a bond election, a mill election, capital general obligation bond, maybe even the end of this year. My question I bring to you here is that we need to keep in mind timing. The timing of what is going to sell and what is not going to sell. What is more a priority for us in this time frame than the BOCES? I got an impression as I listen, and I haven't been around long enough, but I'm giving you my reaction as a guy who's been involved in working with the people trying to get money for various types of projects. The timing of what we do is very important here. And as I heard you, you're intending to bring this to the school districts shortly. And it's not a half a mil to the taxpayer, it's a mil. Okay? So, and we're going to be asking for something right down the road. And let's say the taxes go up because of this BOCES, and then we're asking right away for a capital improvement. I'm a little bit nervous about that, and I think that needs to be considered in the discussion of whether we move forward at this time. I'm not speaking against the concept. The concept makes, I mean, everything you put down here demonstrates that we should move toward that. But when, I think, is something we need to consider.
Yeah, and it's a perfect point, and it's one that we've grappled with now for the past year, as Brenda and Stan have been saying we should look at this, but probably more than that. The reason that it's moving forward faster, and again, we haven't decided necessarily and said when we would go out and actually ask for any voter support for facilities projects. I'm becoming more of the mind, and again, that can be changed, but more of the mind that our approach to the community to tax themselves for facilities projects most likely shouldn't happen this coming fall. Now, there's some folks, and as Lisa's still here, she left, there's some compelling arguments to suggest you got to capitalize on interest rates where they're at now, and if you wait till fall of 2014, interest rates may not be where they're at, and what it's going to cost to build those buildings are going to go up. I think we've got more work to do, and we have the opportunity to actually extend that development and go to the voters in the fall of 2014 to support our facility projects, not in 13. Thus, if we're going to do a BOCES or BOCES approach, now would be the better time. But I completely agree. We should not do these so that they are one right after another, and we shouldn't do them in the same year, in my opinion. But I firmly believe that what we'll come to you with is a recommendation to actually have you go out to the taxpayers in the fall of 2014 for that facilities, that bond election, not in 2013.
Well, I think that's responsive to your concern, definitely.
And I will say that Dr. Chafer is the third president that I've actually sat at the table like this with.
You said 5 years.
Over 15 years that I've been here. Dr. Boland talked about it, and then Dr. Hammond talked about it, and now we're talking about it with Dr. Chafer. So is ever, my mother used to say, you know, if you wait till you have enough money, you're never going to have a baby. There's never enough money.
No, it doesn't work that way.
I guess we're going to have this baby.
Butch.
I know the timing in Albany County is probably not good, as probably already spoken. New high school coming up in Monterey. But I like the concept as well, and I think from Albany County standpoint, it would, I think the Albany County campus might suffer just a little bit about image and about maybe what the campus does. And I think allowing this type of vehicle to establish itself would connect the college more with the Albany County residents. And I'm hoping down the road of doing things together, more visibility, and maybe at some point in time we can even do something from the tax base to help fund some projects and programs at Albany County. But I look at it as an opportunity a couple of years from now, hopefully, and hopefully create some flexibility in this type of structure. So we could add maybe 1 or 2 members to this board, to the BOCES board, to include Albany County to do something.
Yeah, and Butch, they're good points, and in fact, it's conversations that we've had. It is not at all our intention that we don't want to have Albany County part of this arrangement. In fact, the very design of it would allow them to become part of it through an amendment of the contract and all of that good stuff, that we have that opportunity. And in many ways, when that school is approved and constructed with its close proximity to the Albany County campus, it opens up a whole bunch of opportunities. I mean, when you think of opportunities for career academies and that relationship because of our proximity, there's wonderful opportunities. But knowing that they've got a new school construction and looking at the community to support that, the reason that we haven't focused on them for this initial push is just the timing isn't right for us to do that with Albany County. And I don't think the school district would say, yeah, we're willing to go out and tax our voters in addition while we're trying to build this school as well. But our full intention is that they would become part of this and part of the Southeast Wyoming BOCES down the road. And I think we have that opportunity to amend the contract to bring in those new partners and certainly do that with our fullest intention.
We had the first meeting, Sandy Barton, one of the representatives who came up with the Laramie was from the school board there, and he was his reaction was very positive, as was the District 1 trustee who came to that meeting. She left saying it was one of them, told me in the hall, that it was one of the most exciting things that she had actually heard discussed in recent meetings.
We're drawing near to our 5 o'clock time. I would say that I think this board would encourage you to continue on with your movement toward this, and it looks like we have this timeline that we have to meet if we're going to do it. So how do folks feel around here? Yes? Okay, let's move on.
And,
okay.
Carol, just so you know, so what we will do with this is we'll continue to flesh out the proposal, probably modify this. I'll ask Stan and Mary Ellen to arrange a time for us to sit down with Superintendent Stock and his executive team, as well as the School District 2 executive team, basically pitch it to them and get their tenor about getting it to their trustees, and I'm hoping they will have a similar conversation with their boards. And then from there, we'll get an idea of how it's going to work, what it would look like, and whether or not we really do have the momentum to keep moving with it, encouraged to do it as well. But then we have the opportunity. I mean, it is exciting to say that when we form this, it could be formed around the completion agenda. I mean, the whole thing could be formed around high school completion, college continuation, and college completion, the whole thing. And that's pretty exciting when you think about it. And I think we could sell the community and the taxpayers on the value of that.
So many parents who come into my office have relatives all over Wyoming.
Right.
I've had more than one parent say to me, well, why does my student, why does he only take one course? This is BOCES money. And I say, well, this is BOCES money. We'll try to see
Thank you both very much for coming and filling us in. I guess educating us. Well, we have about 4 minutes left.
Boy, a sergeant.
Yeah. Okay, I want all of you to look at this 2013 WACCT conference schedule that will be done here at our community college, and maybe Vicki can let us all, remind us to come out and be involved in this on February 7th. What day of the week is that, please?
It's a Thursday.
A Thursday? Okay. Okay, I'm just encouraging you to come and be present for that special event. Ed?
There's actually 2 days that we would be looking at involving you, not full. There's the commission meeting one day, and there's the, as you indicated, the WACCT, and I just have shared, and I will, Steve will send it out I believe pretty quickly, an agenda that is being drafted that includes discussion of the completion agenda that we've been talking about, also some additional items on how funding takes place, although I believe they decided to narrow that down a little bit according to Steve, and there's something else on that, but I will get that out to you as soon as Steve sends it out, or Vicki will share it with you once Steve has finalized that agenda. And currently, Jim Roth is the president of the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees, and he's working with Steve on setting that up along with other folks at each of the colleges. So.
Now, Ed, is it on the 6th then? Will that event take place on the 6th, the day before? Is that what I'm hearing or not?
To be real sure, let me send that to you, okay, which you will get in the next day or two.
And is that what you wanted to talk about here? That is the event?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to table the committee discussion until our meeting. And then, if no one has anything else they would like to discuss, I will...
I have a quick question.
Yes.
January 9, spring kickoff, this is for faculty only? That morning session, pardon? It's the entire campus. It's an open meeting. Okay.
So we can come, if that's your question.
So, that's right, we're invited.
We're invited.
Yes, and please feel free to come. I will update the campus on much of our conversation today.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you. And therefore, I will adjourn this meeting. And thank you, everyone, for sitting through hours.
5 hours.
5 hours
Nicely
of
done.
hard work.
Had this been through the agenda, you did a good job. That was